Hello and welcome to Record Sports Hotline Live with myself, Daniel Caw. And tonight I'm joined by Record Sports version of the two Ronnies, Scott McDermott and Keith Jackson. How you doing?
We're reunited.
I'm definitely Ronnie Corbett. I think Ronnie was bigger than me.
It's good to see you two together after your
I was
your
going to say
Euros love affair.
the band are back together. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's it. This is the first team pairing.
I even get a wee scare cut coming on and everything.
I see that. By the way, they've held nothing back,
Nice,
have they?
nice trim, man. Nice trim.
Wee tennis ball heat.
Well, listen, Scott, it's perfect that you're on the hotline tonight, obviously, because you were at Hampden last night for what can only be described as a miserable night for Rangers. A really sore one.
That's an understatement.
Aye, and they went out of the Champions League. I don't even know where to start with this. I mean, it was a shocker all round.
It was. I mean, listen, the best place to start is probably a red card.
Aye.
The best place to start is that you predicted Rangers 2, Kiev 1.
I did, but you were 2-1 as well.
No. I said I wanted to see the team member.
Do you know what he was Scott? But then when the team came out, he did say.
Once I saw the team, I said that team will not win.
Yeah, he did say that.
Thank you.
Well, listen, the Cherny omission for the starting lineup was a big shock to all of us. I think. I mean, I was absolutely convinced he would start the game after his performance against Motherwell. The fact that Clement took him off after 55 minutes against Motherwell was supposedly to gear him up for the midweek game. I mean, actually, Cherny came into the press conference after the Motherwell game and was asked, "Are you ready to start on Tuesday night?" And honestly, he looked at the journalist as if he'd two heads. I mean, he said, "Of course, I'm ready to start. So I'm 100% ready to go." So I was absolutely convinced he would start. I mean, the team sheet came out last night. Really surprising, and it's backfired on them. I mean, obviously Clement thought, his idea was always to bring him on in the second half, and obviously Dynamo were a bit more tired. Cherny could maybe have a bigger impact, but when you make a decision like that, I'm saying he made the decision. Apparently, as we now know, it's the Ibrox medics that have made the decision, which I find quite strange. But when you make a decision like that, you run the risk of something happening that you can't control, like the red card. And basically, Cherny's introduction was rendered useless, basically, because he came on.
I'm going to stop you. Right. So you spoke to the player. The player wants to play.
Yeah.
You seem to be suggesting here that Clement wanted the player to play. So the player wants to play, the manager wants to play the player, and some wee medical guy said, "No, you can't do that."
That's it.
No. No.
Physios and sports scientists are picking teams now. And I just said...
Well, that would be utterly ludicrous.
That's what's happened. I says to Jacko before we come on, I sat there last night when the manager said that and thought, can you imagine Walter Smith sitting after a game being asked about a player not playing, and he turns around and said, "The medical staff told me not to play." I mean, it just beggars belief. And in all seriousness, that if the medics did make that decision last night, it's clearly backfired. If they continue to make decisions like that, Clement, it'll cost Clement his job.
You can't. I mean, I'll tell you what the medical department should do. They should go and check Tom Lawrence and check for a pulse. Because if he's fit to start as many games as he's started, he's offered nothing, he's doing nothing. And that's another thing we said before the game. The midfield three should have been Dujon Sterling with Diamonde and Conor Barron. That was the three. And if he had that three on, I think they would have had much more control of the game. They had, I mean, it wasn't as if they were getting, torn apart. It was actually two very, very average sides.
You're right.
But I firmly believe with Sterling's energy in the centre of the pitch, it would have been a very, very different 90 minutes.
But also, see if Cherny's fit for 45 minutes.
Play him in the first 45.
Play the first 45. Go and try and win the game.
Yeah.
Like you say, when he came on, the game was basically gone. By the time he got on.
Well, he was on the park a couple of minutes, wasn't he, when the red card?
He gets sent off. So, and that's the things that you can't compensate for. So,
Now, I think we should talk about the red card, by the way, as well.
Aye, I've got a ton of comments on that, by the way. And do you want me to start with the comments, actually? So I've got that many. I should probably run through a few.
Fire through them.
Obviously, Hefty sent off, we know, for 2 yellow cards. Right. Pat Kelly, the ref was terrible. Clement made a couple of clangers for me, not starting Czerny and not taking Hefty off at half time. As I said, we could all see he was going to get sent off. Peter Pegg, you can't jump like that when you're on a yellow. It's simple. Plus, he gave away numerous fouls in the first half anyway. Eddie Brown, Hefty didn't deserve to get sent off, but any good manager could see that after the first soft yellow and a few silly challenges in the first half, it was an accident waiting to happen. And Kenny Brotherston maybe harshly sums it up, saying, as a lifelong Rangers fan, I said as soon as the first booking, that clown would be sent off. A bit harsh, that one with Kenny, but aye.
That's a bit harsh.
I mean, he's won a header. It's not even a foul.
No.
Aye.
It's a ridiculous decision. Who was it? Mark Guidi was the referee.
Marco Guida.
Easily confused. I'm sorry, there's just no way of justifying it. However, I do think some of those comments in terms of the substitution at half time was strange for me, because Rangers were getting some joy down the right hand side and not very much down the left. So if anything, he could have swapped McCausland over to the left hand side and put Czerny on the right. So I didn't understand that substitution, and I'd go as far as to say I didn't understand any of the substitutions that he made. And in the second half as well, Scott, well, you know, it goes down to the 10 men, and my first thought is, well, what he's got to do now, even as Hefty's coming off the park, is get Sterling on and get Lawrence off. Instead of that, he takes off Diamande, who was looking tired because he'd put in some shift. But I still say you stick with him and take off Tom Lawrence.
Yeah, aye. Listen, I was surprised as well. And he shifted Diamande out to the left
before that substitution. He shifted Diamande to the left.
But when the red card happened, I think automatically, you know, he's going to go 4-4-1. I'm thinking in my own head, I've seen Tom Lawrence for previous clubs play really well off the left hand side, cutting in. So I'm thinking immediately he'll just shift him to the left, 4-4-1, Diamande and Barron still in the middle. Instead, Diamande came out to the left. I've not seen Diamande play in the left for Rangers since he arrived. Shifts him out to the left, keeps Lawrence in there with Barron, and then when the substitute comes, he takes Diamande off. And even more surprised, he put Dujon Sterling
left wing.
I mean, I just thought, and I know you agree, it was when you go to 10 men, you're crying out for a player like Sterling with his energy and his power
to get about the middle of the pitch,
and his engine. He almost would make up for that, you know, for being a man down. To shift him out to the left flank, I mean, he was wasted out there. I thought, just again, it was a total ineffective substitution and really strange.
Well, I think, you know, I'd class myself as a Clement cynic, and you know, anybody who's been watching this show will probably have picked up on that over the last wee while. I think he's really in an awkward spot. He's been given a new contract, incredible decision, but he's now in a really awkward spot because the decisions don't seem to make any sense. There's no real style to his side. There's still no identity.
There's the Danilo riddle as well.
Danilo sitting on a bench, and you put your new centre half and play him up top for the last, what was it, 10 minutes of that match, when Danilo was 6 million striker sitting there. And I think he was adamant afterwards that Danilo was fit.
Yeah.
And you'll see that because he'll be playing. I'm sure I saw a bit of the press conference. But none of this makes any sense.
I know.
And the worse things get, the more caught up in it Clement gets. I think he's becoming more and more erratic. I genuinely think it's really quite a worrying position that Rangers are in just now. And I wonder, I saw something, Scott, on the 10th of September, the Rangers Charity Foundation are hosting a Q&A with Philip Clement at Edmondson House. I think they're charging the punters £38.50 a ticket. That's just a week after the first Old Firm game of the season. I tell you what, we're going to have to send one of our guys to that Q&A.
As long as it's not me.
I was going to say, so are you free on the 10th, Scott? Or
No.
You've already asked your one question.
You get previous.
I mean, can you imagine what the mood is going to be like at that Q&A with the Rangers supporters if it's off the back of another defeat at Celtic Park?
There'll be a few Rangers punters willing to pay a lot more than 38 quid to get in and ask a question.
They might have to shut the thing down. I mean, remember the Blues Brothers and it was behind chicken wire and all that?
Right. AGM was in the centre circle, remember?
that was mad.
Listen, I feel sorry for Clement. I don't disagree with what Jack was saying. I think strange decisions. I don't think he's helping himself with some of the things he said. I don't think he should. Even the Cherny thing about the medical staff, I don't think he has to say that. I think he just should come out after the game, back up his decision. No, I made the decision not to start him. I thought he'd have a bigger impact. Saying that's what you need. I think you just. I think in supporters' eyes, you make yourself look a wee bit silly with comments like that. And as I said last week, I don't think his comments about Rangers will be fine come October, November. I don't think that's gone down very well either with the fans. So he's no helped himself at times. Where I do feel sorry for him, Jacko, and surely you agree with this, is how he's been left with this squad and the makeup of this squad, the profile of this squad, the quality of this squad to start a season and going to a Champions League qualifier.
I was thinking that
honestly.
I was thinking that exact same thing last night, Scott, and I was watching the game and I kid you not when I say this, I was looking at it and the standard of performance. I was actually thinking to myself that I seriously don't know if I've seen a more flimsy or less capable looking Rangers side since they returned to the top flight.
Yeah.
At any point since they come back into the top league, I'm not sure. It's actually I'm getting pre-Mark Warburton vibes off that team just now. That's how average they look.
I said after the Hearts game when I spoke to his for Lublin that I thought if this is the squad and the team that Rangers are going to go with for the season, they'd struggle to get second place. They'd be fighting out with Hearts or Aberdeen. And at the time, I thought I was maybe kind of putting myself out there a wee bit saying that, but I've watched the game since and I stick by that. I mean, unless they get serious quality in, and now
that's not going to happen.
Now they've not got. It doesn't seem as if they've got the money to do that.
But here's the thing, and this is why it does come back on the manager, Scott. He's got guys like Todd Cantwell, guys like Yanis Hadji.
Yeah,
they're getting paid a wage to be Rangers players, and they're nowhere to be seen. They are quality.
Yeah.
And they'd have made a difference last night. I mean, Kiev, they'd have made a difference.
I would. Todd Cantwell would play before Tom Lawrence for me every time.
Oh,
even though Todd Cantwell wasn't always the most productive, I think he puts in a more of a shift, and I think he's more creative.
The point that they lost players in the summer that they knew they were going to lose, right? So take Lundstrom as an example. They've known Lundstrom's going for months.
Now he plays them a number 6.
And yet, John Lundstrom would have walked into that team last night and ran the game.
I know.
He could argue they've let Connor Goldson go, and I don't necessarily think that's a bad decision. I think Connor Goldson's time at Rangers was probably up. But I'm looking at the team last night. Connor Goldson probably still gets in.
Yeah, he does.
That team as well.
Aye.
Well, that's my big. That's my big thing about in terms of the bigger picture, Daniel. Philip Clement and the board have been talking about this Rangers rebuild since last season. They knew last season players were out of contract, players they didn't want, players they wanted out on loan. They've had all that time to plan for all this and get the players, or at least put in place plans to get the players in that they wanted. How they've reached this point in the new season, getting into Champions League qualifiers with a worse team than they had last season is staggering, I think, in terms of the actual organisation, administration, whatever you want to call it.
Here's a thing to think about, right? So, the reason that I was picking up on Clement towards the end of last season, well, everybody saw the results, and I think that, Scott, you probably said, I know a lot of people said the manager's done a great job to try and steady the ship there. He's actually got getting a tune out of players that he's inherited that weren't given a tune to the previous manager. And when it all blew up towards the end of the season, I think the finger of blame was automatically pointed towards the players. Oh, they've done it again.
Yes.
They're serial losers. This is what they do. But actually, now when you look back, and I've got I'll look back here through results. If you go back to Rangers 3, Celtic 3, and on that day, Clement did a lap on around the pitch. It was as if he felt the league had been won that day, because Rangers got a draw at home at Celtic.
Whereas, at least thought they were still in the driving seat.
Well, yeah, because Rangers had a game in hand and could still go top. And to me, that was a big mistake, a big error of judgment, because what he had to do was beat Celtic at Ibrox, and he could have finished the league at that point, right? So if you go back to that game, Rangers have played 14 games, 10 at the end of last season, 4 at the start of this. 14 games, 6 wins, 4 defeats, and 4 draws. That gives them a win rate of 43% over that period. That is not sustainable. That's
nowhere near good enough.
Well, let me compare. Pedro Caixinha sacked, win rate of 54%. Paul Le Guen sacked, win rate of 52%, which is better than these numbers. Now, okay, over his
sample size,
over the entire time, his win rate is sitting at 68%, 68.18. That's 301 days in the job. What's interesting is Michael Beale had 307 days in the job. Clement's win rate 68.18%. Michael Beale's win rate 72.09%. These are damning statistics.
That's damning.
Well, you know,
Keith, it points to more than just a bad start to the season, or they're actually becoming a pattern to it.
And the worry about that is, or the big worry is, that you're right, last season they weren't brilliant when they came in last season, but they got the job done in a lot of games.
Yeah.
They go and win the League Cup. Again, not that impressive, but they go and get the trophy that the fans wanted. And all the time you're saying to yourself, well, he's doing this, he's getting them through it. This is a professional job he's putting on. By the time the summer comes, he'll get his own players in. We'll see a new style, we'll see a new Rangers. We've seen nothing. Absolutely none of that.
Well, he said he was going to overhaul the medical department because he was so unhappy with the medical department. So now you
get about 4 players out already,
and the medics are telling him to pick his starting 11.
That's it.
And as you said, so there you've got Yilmaz pulled up again. So listen, there's so much about it that
Ryan Jack said on a podcast the other day. I thought was quite interesting when he was asked about Clement and his style, and in describing his style, he just said he wants the ball forward as quick as possible. Now, listen, I'm not saying that means long ball football. It doesn't. You get what he means. No, it's direct. You don't need to go long to get the ball forward quickly. But Ryan Jack was then asked about he's seen him this season, and he said that I've not seen any change. He thought he thought he was going to see a big change in Rangers after the summer, after getting a full pre-season.
I see a change, and funnily enough, and again, come on, one of the things he said was, well, we've lost John Lundstrom, as if this was a disaster. I do see a change in the combinations between Conor Barron and Diamonde. I do see faster, more direct passing. They're passing forward. They are, Scott. They are far zippier through the middle of the park. They are. That's the one bright kind of light that you can offer for Rangers right now. That in the middle of the park, they're more dynamic and they're quicker, and they are looking to get forward.
But are any of those two good enough to go and dictate a game?
No,
for you, I don't think so.
No, I think Conor Barron. I think Conor Barron has had a pretty impressive start.
Yeah, really good.
But do you know what I think they need? I think they need a minder in there. And I'm going to come back to if Sterling had started that game last night.
Yeah,
I think I would have allowed the two of them to make those combinations maybe another 30-40 yards further up the pitch.
I think Barron and Diomande are really good at what they do. They've got legs, they've got energy, they're committed, but so they're really good kind of cogs in the wheel, but they're never going to be the main. They need real quality run about them. I think if I look at Diomande in particular, and I've kind of struggled to make my mind up about him, but my main thing is I think he'd be a really good player with better players run about him. I don't think he's the guy that you trust to go in and dominate your midfield for you. I don't think
if that same midfield three, if Monday Barron and Tom Lawrence is the midfield three for the game at Celtic Park at the start of next month, they'll get steamrolled. Yeah. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and listen, but it's not as if they've got loads of guys to come back. You know, get Nico Raskin injured. Not sure when he's back, but that's it. No, we touched on it at the start of in the summer about the midfield. I says he was getting into these games with three midfielders. Kieran Dowell been another one who's clearly no up to it in terms of what Rangers need. And you're right. I mean, you go to Celtic, you think about how far behind Rangers look compared to Celtic. Honestly, I think it's frightening. And I look at that Celtic squad, and just looking at the midfield, I mean, you could argue Celtic get three best midfielders.
Yeah, all right.
O'Reilly, Hatate,
I think you get much of a fight.
And that for a Rangers team, I don't know. That's not good enough.
Just before you ask that, I'll say this now. I think Rangers will be doing well if they come away from that first derby of the season 5 points behind. You know, I think the lead, the Celtics lead, could be greater than that after that game. I'm not sure that this Rangers team look as if they're going to rattle off a bunch of wins before they go into that game.
They've only got one game, Ross County at home.
Right, okay.
So.
Oh well, I'll take that back.
Ross County, I got Hampden to win.
Well, look, I know.
Listen,
I wouldn't rule that out either. I seriously. That Rangers team looks like it could drop at any time.
But he's right in one sense, right? The very minimum, it's impossible to see Rangers going and winning at Celtic as things stand at the moment. So it's a 5 point lead by the end of the first month.
Even
this feeds back into what I'm saying about Clement's comments about we'll be fine come October, November. That's not what supporters want to hear. I mean, without saying they've gave up the season, that's what it feels. That's what it feels like.
Season over.
First month of the season.
End of the first month.
No, they're trailing the 4 in a row champions. That there's an acceptance that Celtic are further ahead. There's an acceptance that they've got more cash behind them. Rangers are trying to bridge that gap, but there's almost this acceptance that we'll be probably 5 clear by.
In fact, the fans are right
at the end of August. But listen, we'll be fine come November.
I should say.
Obviously,
social media isn't the be all and end all, but we've got plenty of comments on Clement tonight. And as I say, if you're watching, get your comments fired in. Drew McMaster, watching live on Facebook, he's written, Clement has a worse win rate than Beale and shows no signs of being a better manager. The team lacks style and his press conferences are mostly about shifting blame. Very uninspiring. And we had this one as well from Rangers Easy OK watching live on YouTube. It wasn't the fans that mentioned a rebuild. It's been the club saying it for months and they haven't delivered. Bennett has 2 weeks to find money. Otherwise, there will be protests pretty soon. And just while I'm in here, guys, I will hit you with a couple more Clement comments, if that's okay. Jim Cowan. Clement said they were the better team. They really weren't. Average team against an average team. It was never a red card, but still didn't hide how poor the players were. And Steve McAteer chimes in saying 7 wins in his last 19 games. Is that on last night's ref or Clement? So I know social media isn't the be all and end all, but certainly it feels like the kind of spotlight is definitely shifted onto Clement rather than.
It is, but again, I'll cut my wee bit of slack, Daniel, in terms of, I mentioned the state of the squad he's been left with. I also think behind the scenes, said this a few weeks ago, Rangers get into a new season where you're trailing Celtic, you're trying to topple Celtic and get a title back, and no CEO, no sporting director, no head of academy, and a stadium that's no fit to hold games. That's absolutely astonishing and unacceptable for me getting into a new season.
Well, Scott, see, and this is obviously to yourself as well, Keith, right? See, since 21, so just over 3 years ago, the summer of 21, Rangers have won the Premiership title. They've won both domestic cups. They've got to a European final. They've got to the knockout stages of the Europa League again. They've had a Champions League campaign. Why? I get missing out on last night's money would be a blow for any club, particularly in Scotland. But why are Rangers so reliant on it? I mean, they're one of the best supported clubs in Britain. And with that run over the last 3 years, you'd expect them to be in a much more healthier position. Or am I being naive?
No, you're not, because they did make the Champions League group stages a couple of seasons back. They sold Calvin Bassey.
Aye, of course, aye.
They sold Nathan Patterson. They got a lot of money out of Aston Villa when Steven Gerrard and his background team went there.
Joe Aribo was 10 million.
Joe Aribo was a lot of money. They've made significant sales.
Kamara.
I don't think he was in the big bracket, but you know, your guys like your Bassies, Pattersons, Gerrard, as I said, his coaching staff, that was a significant sum. They got that run to the Europa League final. They got the group stage of the Champions League, although that ended up being a bit of a chastening experience for them. It's hard to fathom.
Yeah,
it's hard to fathom. I think, to be fair to John Bennett and some of the guys that are in there, they've been digging into their own pockets.
Oh, I don't doubt that.
To fund the thing, and I think there may be, loans that might have been repaid along the way, and fair enough, because these guys were, willing to put the money up to try and progress things. But it just does seem like one really difficult to understand mistake after the next.
It didn't kick on after the title one, did they? And that was.
Well, I think that
was a chance.
At that point, the chairman was Douglas Park, and I think that that it's been spoken about, hasn't it? That Steven Gerrard was desperate to be given the funds that he felt were required to. I think, what was his phrase at the time? You've got to make able the sun shine.
Yeah, the fix the roof and
fix the roof for the sun's still shining. So that's what he was hinting at that point. And clearly he wasn't given the financial backing that he thought he needed in order to take the next step with Rangers. And the next thing, he was away down to Villa at the first call, the first time of asking. So these problems backdate to that. And by the way, the skirmishes between Dave King and the Parks, and all the bad blood that's been around the thing, it's, I actually feel pretty sorry for John Bennett, because I think he's the right guy in there now, but it's the wrong time. There's all this legacy stuff flying around, and I actually feel for him, and I know how badly he would have been hurting when he found out what James Bisgrove had done to him about the stadium, misleading the board. This is it's actually a catastrophic list of events.
That's incredible.
And I don't know, and I wonder if, because things are so bad, they felt panicked or knee-jerked into giving a new contract to Clement, and just hoping that this guy might be the real deal, might lead them out, might give them a sense of direction. I'm afraid it's starting to look as if it might be more the case of the blind leading the blind.
Well, on that, Keith, James Sinclair's written in, he's saying, I'm thinking giving a contract extension just before the season started was maybe a bad idea. This one from Paul Thomas made me giggle. As an honest Rangers fan, I think it's time to let Clement go and bring in Souness. I can't see that happening, Paul, but thank you for getting in touch. Scott, one thing we haven't touched on was the atmosphere last night. Obviously, it was put out, I think the official number was 39,000. Didn't look like that in telly, but how was it? Like, what was it like?
No, it was pretty poor, if I'm being honest, Daniel. I actually wrote a wee piece for the record during the game, just comparing it to, obviously, to 1987, the last time Dynamo Kiev were here. Obviously, Ibrox, when, if you ask Rangers punters, widely regarded as one of the best atmospheres ever in the history of the club. And the contrast was stark last night. No, listen, you'd expect that. It's Hampden. I says to you before the game, you're never going to recreate the Ibrox atmosphere at Hampden. It's just not that type of stadium. But there is an apathy there. You can feel it. Listen, I don't know if people expected it to be a sellout, but there was big chunks behind the goal, empty seats. There wasn't a great deal of noise at the start. I says to Keith before we came on, ironically, the best moment in terms of atmosphere was after the red card, because it was that kind of act of defiance in terms of the punters getting up for it, feeling harshly treated. And for 5 or 10 minutes, it was quite noisy. It was reminiscent of Hampden, a big Scotland game or a cup final or whatever. But even then, I mean, it was 10 minutes. They were looking for the players again to give them something to hold on to, and just didn't get it. So
and that should be the alarming thing, because I'm watching that thinking, do you know something? This is interesting. Terrible decision by the referee. It's an injustice. They are down to 10 men, but this Kiev side aren't that good.
No.
Now this is still doable with 10 men. And what I was actually thinking was, with the atmosphere, what did start to pick up, and you're thinking, these players have got a chance here to really endear themselves to the supporters and reconnect with the support, which is in danger of drifting away here. Well, what an opportunity that would have been if they could have, nicked that with 10 men. In a sort of Walter Smith style performance, that would have brought everybody together again. It would have really reconnected everything.
It would have. You're 100% right.
And what it's gone the opposite way.
And without harping back to the changes, I thought it was made for them just sitting in two banks of four.
Of course it was.
And putting a Wright or a Matondo up front.
Yeah,
and just playing down the side. Kiev weren't that great, honestly. I think they'd have struggled to deal with that. I thought Rangers for a big spell after the red card looked relatively comfortable.
Yeah.
But the changes just didn't work for them.
See just on Hampden, Rangers easy okays written in. Again, I think it's a very ominous comment on, going back to what you were saying, Scott. Fortunate enough to go home and away, and if you thought the attendance was bad last night, wait till you see the attendance on Saturday against St Johnstone. John Bennett is one bad result away from Bedlam. I think you've hit the nail on the head, Scott, with the apathy comment.
Yeah, the next two games, I mean, home to St Johnstone, the Cup, but it's obviously not on the season ticket, and then even home to Ross County in the league, where Ross County are going to go and win 2-0, obviously.
Might nick a point.
County Jacko.
Didn't say that, but they might nick a point.
The two games, those two games, those games are, you think of those games at Ibrox, like a typical of those games, again, I say it, where the team need to kind of get the fans up for it. No, they need to show something, and it just gets the crowd going. So there's real pressure on the players, even more so at Hampden, where the atmosphere isn't as good. And these are dangerous games now, because I said that last night. There's a real air of negativity about the place. I mean, I said that before the game, 100 times worse after the game. I said before the game, it felt like people were just waiting for the disaster and waiting for the big trip up. And obviously it happened last night. And as I say, these next two games, the players really need to stand up and go and get the job done. Do what they need to do before going to Celtic Park, and then that'll take care of itself.
And there's also real pressure on the medical staff to make sure they pick the right team.
100%.
Look, as much, I'm sure we could sit for the next few years talking about the Rangers game last night, but we have to kind of move on, guys. Time is against us. Elsewhere, Keith, across the city, we understand there's been reports today that Matt O'Reilly has agreed terms with Serie A side Atalanta. They haven't agreed a fee yet.
Yeah, listen, you never rule anything out in football these days, because we all know that in the old days you used to say tapping up, but it's gone on, it always has gone on, it always will go on. Whether or not this is actually correct, the rumour seems to be coming out of Italy that he's agreed terms on a contract until 2029. Completely unsubstantiated at this side, but it's clear that Atalanta aren't going to give up the chase. They keep coming back.
Yeah.
And you're getting to the point now that eventually, as I wrote in the paper today, eventually these Italians are going to make Celtic an offer that they can't refuse. And that seems to be the way it's heading now. Whether or not it's accurate that they've been speaking with Matt O'Reilly's people and that they've agreed, what the contract would look like, I couldn't say, but certainly the speculation coming out of Italy seems to suggest it's getting closer.
I think we've all accepted for a while now that he's going to go. I
don't know if he's definitely going to go to Atalanta.
No, but he's going to go this window.
Brendan Rodgers will be hoping not, but the numbers,
he must know.
The numbers will eventually dictate the situation, and I think with the amount of interest in him, it wouldn't be logical now for the target number not to be hit. Somebody will hit that target number.
Yeah.
And then at that point...
And what a move for him. Going to...
Well, it's Serie A or the Premier League, whatever.
I was going to say
Atalanta, Europa League winners. I think Italian football might actually suit him better than the Premier League. Honestly, I don't. This isn't a criticism of O'Reilly, but I don't. He's no lightning quick. I don't think the Premier League, the pace, the intensity. I think Italian football actually suit him down to the ground. Some massive games to play in, Champions League. Well, you think what Celtic paid for him. We were talking earlier on, Rangers recruitment and trying to get players in. You think of what you can pick up on a relative shoestring. I mean, picking him up for MK Dons for what, $1 million, $1.5 million.
Remarkable.
A few years later to go and get 20-25 million. I mean, wow.
I think the other thing to factor into that is Lewis Ferguson was the best midfielder in the top flight in Italian football last season. So Lewis Ferguson was the best midfielder in the country. If Matt O'Reilly goes there, he's got the possibility, the potential to be an absolute superstar.
I mean, I'm saying it's a great move going to Atalanta, but Jack was right. If he does well there, there'll be another even bigger move beyond that, whether that's to one of the Serie A big guns or eventually to the Premier League.
Lewis Ferguson the interest from Juventus and AC Milan, that was real. That was very real until Lewis Ferguson's injury. So, that is some opportunity. If he goes there and hits the Serie A the way that he's hit the Scottish top flight, I mean, he could go through the roof.
Yeah.
Look, we should say as well, guys, it's not just Rangers that are in European action this week from a Scottish point of view. Obviously, St Mirren and Kilmarnock are in action tomorrow evening. A little earlier on, I linked up with Record Sports' Craig Swan, who's over in the Arctic Circle for Kilmarnock's clash with Tromso tomorrow night. And here's what he had to say.
I see what Swanie's wearing here. He's duffel coat.
Record Sports' Craig Swan, I believe, is 200 miles north of the Arctic Circle. Been doing my research. First things first, how's the weather?
It doesn't feel like the Arctic Circle, Daniel. It was 22, 23 degrees today. It's beautiful, and it's still beautiful now. It's a lovely. They tell us here in Tromso it's been a very unusual summer.
It certainly looks.
So, very nice.
It certainly looks a lot better than it does here. That's for sure. You're obviously there, Swanee, because Kilmarnock, they're playing Tromso tomorrow night in the Europa Conference League qualifier. 2-2 last week. How do you rate Kilmarnock's chances of getting a result tomorrow night?
I would say probably in the 50-50 bracket, Daniel. Last week's game I found very strange. I think a lot of people that were at the game. Kilmarnock started really well. They got an early goal. At that stage, you looked at it and thought they could really go on and push on and press home a big advantage. But Tromso slowly worked their way into the game. They slowed the game right down. They started to play it almost at walking pace at times. And it became a bit of a puzzle for Kilmarnock, which they really and truly, being honest, they struggled to solve. Their play sort of began to break down before half-time. Tromso were coming more and more into the game. And in the second half, Kilmarnock gave away, in the words of Derek McInnes, a couple of terrible goals, which they were terrible goals to concede. So I think before the tie, we were quite optimistic that Kilmarnock would make it through. I think on the basis of what we've seen in the first leg, I think it's probably 50-50 now. I would still rate it at 50-50. I don't think Tromso are automatically favourites because they're at home now. Because I think Kilmarnock, you can watch as many videos as you like. Matty Kennedy said it after the game. You can watch as many videos as you like. You can do as much prep as you like. But actually playing against the team, seeing what you're up against and getting an idea for how they play is going to be highly beneficial. So I think Kilmarnock will be better prepared for what Tromso do. Now, we spoke to the Tromso camp today. They were talking about being a bit more forceful on the ball, a bit more attack-minded. So whether they switch it up from what they did in Ayrshire, we'll have to wait and see. But I certainly think for me, it's a 50-50 tie. I think if Kilmarnock play as they can, they've still got a great chance of getting through this.
And of course, the reason why they're in Europe was because for the bulk of last season, they were fantastic. Kilmarnock under Derek McInnes, they were great. But this season hasn't got off to the same kind of flying start. Do you think that'll affect Killie tonight?
Possibly. I mean, it's hard to know. Confidence takes a dent when you lose bad goals. And Kilmarnock have been guilty of losing bad goals in the first leg. They lost a bad goal in Bruges in the last round, which ultimately put them out. The manager wasn't best pleased with some of the concessions against St Johnstone last weekend. So these things mount up. to hurt confidence a little bit. I think Kilmarnock's biggest strength, listen, the attacking players did great last year. Matty Kennedy, Danny Armstrong, Kelvisell, Marley Watkins, great. But the platform was built on solidity, not giving much away. And the start of the season, there's been one or two slips that you wouldn't normally associate with a Derek McInnes team, or Derek McInnes' Kilmarnock team anyway. So, yeah, I think confidence has got to take a knock. I mean, that's only natural, but I don't think it's to an extent where it would be damaging. For example, going into the game, I don't think it's at that stage. But yeah, it's going to be down a little, I would say, from the way they ended last season and the way they felt last season. They're probably slightly different now, yeah.
And I know some fans will probably be looking at it and going, "Oh, they don't have the squad to compete," but I still think with this squad they've got, Kelly, I think they'll win tomorrow night. I know that's quite a bold statement, and even if they could get through this tie, forgetting even, not even looking ahead to the group stage, get through this tie, that'd be a great achievement as well. And obviously, there's the lure of Copenhagen perhaps in the next round. Absolutely,
which would be a formidable challenge in its own right. But I think, as we said this time last week when we were preparing for the first game, it's get through this tie first. And yeah, it would be a huge confidence boost to come away anywhere in Europe and get a result and get yourself through. Is a massive boost to any Scottish club. I mean, listen, we as a country have to understand where we are just now. And if you look through recent years, it's not been great at this stage.
That's fair, right?
There are countries that go into the qualifiers and their teams sail through. Ours don't, and haven't done so for quite some time. No. So for any team to get through and win rounds and win games, and especially to do it away from home, would be massive for them.
I know Celtic obviously played in that part of the world a few years ago against Bodo Glimt.
It was completely different, Daniel. And that time of the year, it was February, and it was about -12, I think, from what I can remember. It was freezing.
I was going to say, so what is the place like generally? Is it quite a fun, busy place? Or
beautiful place, so picturesque, yeah, with the water and the restaurants and all that down at the front, and the big cruise line I was in today, parked up, all the people off, and then away again at 4 o'clock. So no, it's really, really nice, really, but lovely old-fashioned style to it, and just a nice place. And everybody seems so warm and so friendly and so helpful. And I think there's obviously, I was reading somewhere that there's virtually no crime here. Crime rates virtually nothing, and everybody would appear to get on. There isn't a lot goes wrong. So no, very, very nice.
Sounds lovely. Before I let you go, there's 2 critical questions I need you to answer for me. First one, how much is a pint?
Well, I've found that it varies.
But it's meant to be really expensive. I've never been there, but is it as bad as they say?
Well, I can't pretend to have gone through the card and gone through every single one. I think if you get a pint down at the front, you're talking about £14-15. I think if you go back the streets a little bit and get something a little weaker, you can get away with £6 or £7 if you hunt around in the right place. So
even that's no cheap.
Needless to say, I went to the wrong ones last night.
And just finally, Swanee, I like putting everyone on the spot. I know you said it's a 50-50 game, but if you were pushed, what's your prediction for tomorrow night's game?
I think, put it this way, I think it might go all the way. I could see it going to penalties, and then it's a flip of a coin. I know that looks like sitting in the fence, and it probably sounds like sitting in the fence, and it probably is sitting in the fence. But I can see it going the whole way, and then it's penalties. And hope that Robbie McCrory comes good.
I've just got a feeling, see that Bobby Wales goal in the last minute last week. I think that's going to prove.
It could be a huge momentum shift, Daniel. You're bang on. I mean, at that stage, I'm not suggesting for a minute Kilmarnock's heads were down because they finished the game really strongly in the last 20 minutes. But yeah, the timing of that goal just turned the tie a wee bit back in their favour, and would obviously have been a dent to Tromso's confidence. Of course, we have spoken about the fact that they got the weekend off.
Aye.
Well, Kilmarnock had to play against St Johnstone for a large part with 10 men as well, which wasn't ideal. So they feel quite bullish about that, the fact of managed to get rid of a few niggling injuries and they've freshened up. So listen, Kilmarnock are built on resilience. That's resilience. They've got quality, but they've got real resilience about them, and we're going to need to see that on Thursday night.
Aye, it's an intriguing one. Swanee, I hope you enjoy it. I hope it's a cracking game, and safe travels back when the time comes.
Thank you, Daniel. All the best.
Cheers, Swanee.
Craig Swan there, over for the Tromso game. Guys, I know I've run over a little bit tonight and we've all got lives to go on with, but Keith, I've got a dream of 5 Scottish teams in group stage European football? Is it going to happen, or am I going to be heartbroken?
You're the eternal optimist, Daniel. Predicted Scottish wins the other place, aren't you?
No, it's not. I will hope Kilmarnock get through. I think they might, but if they bump into FC Copenhagen in the next round, that's
a tough
probably going to be game over, isn't it? So you're hoping that St Mirren can be an outlier in terms of Scottish sides going through the qualification campaigns, because every summer it seems to be the same old story. But let's see. The good news is that I did predict that Craig Swan, wherever you send him, he will successfully find the underbelly, and it sounds as if he's even managed to do that in Tromso.
Tromso didn't even have an underbelly. Took Swan to go there.
He found one they didn't know about.
This is outrageous. You're besmirching his good character. Guys, in fact, Scott, do you think Kelly will get through?
Fear for them, Daniel, I must admit. I said maybe I'm just scarred by previous kind of Scottish teams in Europe.
Scarred by Hampden last night.
Aye. Nah, I don't know. I don't think Kelly have looked themselves this season so far.
They've not got into their groove yet, have they?
Especially defensively, and I think the manager needs reinforcements pretty quickly, just in terms of the league campaign. I don't know whether the European thing, just going the Thursday to Sunday thing's affected them already, but they don't look as solid and as resilient as Swanee was describing them.
I think they're one big result and one big performance away from clicking in again.
Yeah,
and
potentially.
Fingers crossed that it comes in Norway.
Yeah, and St Mirren, listen, I'd love St Mirren, I'd love both of them to get through, obviously, but by all I keep watching, I seen some of the Brandbergen game in Paisley, and they looked like a really decent side. I think they had most of the game. St Mirren did well to get a point with a goal late on, but I'd be surprised if St Mirren could go over there and get a result. It'd be brilliant if they could, but I think that's a tough one for them.
A 1-0 win apiece for St Mirren and Kelly. You can take that to the bank, guys. There you go.
Just don't get the bookies.
Listen, that brings us to the end of tonight's Hotline Live. I should say everyone getting involved in the comments. There's been tons tonight. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Keith, Scott, it's always an absolute pleasure. And we'll be back tomorrow. Thanks for watching.
Night.